Well, welcome to the podcast, guys. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have Emily Orr now. Emily, what is your student? Are you an MDiv or what are you?
My goal is to graduate with biblical history and archaeology.
Awesome. And how long have you been here at TBS?
This is my second semester.
And then you're with your father, Carrie Van Campen. Carrie, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Blake.
Awesome. Now y'all live in Iowa, right?
That's correct.
Okay, now I've been to Iowa one time in my life, and hopefully you'll know where this is. But it was Steamboat Rock, Iowa. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah.
Now, where is that in correlation to you guys?
It's quite a ways north of us.
Okay.
We're in South Central. Most people know Des Moines because that's the capital, and we're like a good hour southeast of Iowa. Of Des Moines.
Of Des Moines. Okay, awesome. And I remember Iowa being, I think we went up there in the wintertime. It was not snowing yet, but it was very cold. I'm used to buildings like blocking the wind, and we were driving down the road, and there's like all these cows, which is fine and cool. I grew up on a small little acreage, but like to see so many cows, it was so cool for me. I loved it, but it was so cold.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know you guys had like a snow day last year. And I was yeah.
It shut down the entire state of Texas with just like a little bit of, like snow, and we weren't ready for it. Hopefully we'll be ready for it hopefully we get some snow. It was nice.
Yeah.
But so you guys are in Iowa. And Carrie, what do you do up there in Iowa?
Well, that's probably a good question. I hope someday to figure that out. I've had the opportunity to be involved in many different things. So I started off in education, teacher, coach, athletic director, principal, college level, then for a little bit, and then also in ministry. I call myself a gapper. I know that sounds a little bit crazy, but I've developed a relationship with enough people, whether it's business owners or NGOs or churches or church ministry organizations, to where I've had the opportunity. Literally, they say, we'd like to get to here, or we'd like to do that. Or they've actually asked me just to be there and just say, what can you do for us? So actually, this week starts a new phase, Blake, for me. I'm going from full-time counseling. I've been working with a dentist that helped multiply out the 3 rural practices and stuff, and consulting and so forth, to where I'm going part-time because my parents' health. They're still on the farm, but I just feel like it's time for me to be there to help my dad, taking care of my mom.
Yeah.
And he's fighting cancer for the 4th time, but doing well. So anyway, weekends I help churches that are in transition. I don't know.
I know it's a complicated answer.
I always felt sorry for the kids when people would say, what does your dad do?
Yeah.
It's like,
A lot. He does a lot.
You're a man of many hats. We'll say that, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. Now the father is Is it Papa? Is that what you call him?
Yes.
Is that the gentleman that was in the video with you guys?
Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome. Yeah. He sounds like he looks like a lot of fun.
He is.
He's a blast.
Yeah. And so Emily, apart from being a TBS student and a mother and a wife,
Right.
you are also a youth pastor. Is that right?
Yeah. So I, part-time, but I think we all know there's really no such thing as part-time ministry.
Yeah.
But technically part-time youth pastor at my church here, Oskaloosa First Assembly of God.
Well, that's very cool. You guys are it sounds like you're very involved. You're doing a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doing quite a bit.
And you have a son as well, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Our son, Charlie, and he and his wife, they live here in town, here in Oskaloosa too. It's
Cool.
pretty neat how this all came together in the last couple of years. And then they're very involved at the church too. Matter of fact, 2 weeks ago, we were there. I wasn't filling in anywhere, so we got to go. And I'm not saying everyone's kids need to do this, but all 4, we consider our in-laws our kids. So Christopher's our son, Tommy Joe, our wife, our son's wife. She's our girl. She's actually Emily's best friend growing up. But we saw all of them using their talents for the Lord in front of people. And
Come on.
wow. Doesn't get any better to seeing our kids taking their God-given talents, giving them back, and touching other people's lives. And boy, And like I said, I'm not saying everyone's kids need to be in front. We need people out taking care of the parking lot. We need people. I think the most precious people in the church are the nursery workers.
Yeah.
They need to be pushed to the front of the line when we get to heaven, so God can say, "Well done, thou good and faithful servant." Well, I'll be quiet. Get me going on my soapbox there.
Hey, I mean, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm a father too, and I love to see my kids involved in with the Lord and doing things, and not just at church, but doing things outside and loving. My daughter and my son love to talk about Jesus to their friends, and their friends don't know who Jesus is, which makes it even more fun, to talk about it. And they're they're 6 and 9, and they're enjoying it. I mean, that's the joy of being a parent. Once you've done a lot of hard work, you never stop being a parent, but
Right.
when you do a lot of hard work and you do a lot of prayer and a lot of just conversations, when you see it, really come true in their lives, you get to sit back and say, "Thank you, Lord." Right?
Yeah.
Yes. Oh man,
Nothing I've done. It's really all you. So thank you, Lord. And Emily, you also have a son, right?
Yeah. So I have a 3-year-old, Judah, and then he has a cousin. So my brother has a son who's 2 years old, and it's so beautiful. This is actually the church that I am helping to pastor at, is a church that I grew up in and was a youth at. And even that, actually, my dad was the children's pastor and associate pastor when I was Judah's age. So it's this beautiful experience and nostalgia of watching Judah run up and down the halls of the church and make it feel like this is his second home. Me knowing that exact same feeling in the exact same location with a lot of the same people, the saints that have been there since I was 3. So it's been an experience that has blessed me and continues to bless me.
We're talking to Emily and Carrie about actually it was a project you did, Emily, right? For a class at TBS?
Yeah. It was a final project for, was it Pastor Leader with Dr. Stripling and Dr. Lewis. And it was basically to just take something that we had learned in our class and apply it to something usable. You could do a PowerPoint or TED Talk or whatever, but curriculum is something I've worked in before, and curriculum's my passion. I just love the Bible, and I love when people, the Bible deserves explanation. And when people are able to hear it, understand it, and apply it, it's just this incredible celebration of life together. So that's kind of the direction I went, was how can I take what we learned, and part of that was Ruth, the story of Ruth, and apply it to a curriculum for people to just use on their daily life.
Yeah, and it was unique. I mean, you chose the book of Ruth. I mean, first of all, I love the book of Ruth because it's only 4 chapters. I'm like, I can read this in one day, right?
Yes.
I mean, that's like a blessing from the Lord. Here's 4 chapters, guys. Go for it.
For real.
And I can understand it. It's awesome, and it's a great book, power packed. But I do want to talk to you about those 4 lessons kind of independently. We can chat about that. But I was going through the first one. I know you do a summary of each time, is that right? And then you go into introduction, and then you kind of have a small teaching after the fact, and you have some curriculum to go with that. You have a lot of notes. I was reading through all that, just amazing. And one thing I thought was really interesting is that it's short and to the point. Yeah. The general theme of this is really kickstarting conversation with parents and kids, which we probably all know can be difficult and intimidating, right?
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Very true.
And so it's easy when they're little, but when they get big, I'm getting into the teenage years almost. And so I'm kind of looking forward to it, kind of not. But I love the first lesson. Maybe we can talk a little bit about that, culture. Carrie, I loved what you said in this. You said every time your kids left, you had 3 things you said. You said, work hard. You said, have fun and touch lives.
Yes.
And I love that. Those are three easy things we can do, right? So
Yeah.
can you kind of explain that to me, how you came up with that and how it's impacted your family?
When our kids came along, my wife Wanda and I, who she is the most beautiful redhead you'd ever see, uh, we've known each other since first grade, and we waited 9 years, and it was partly because I think we were in education, and we kind of felt like those kids were our kids. Matter of fact, one year we team topped 48 sixth graders, and was a blast. Just had a great time. So when we decided to have kids, it's not that we knew parenting by any means, but we had seen things. And plus my dad didn't have a family model or family theme, but being raised on a farm, and we had a lot of livestock. So you can't just ignore them. And that's where one morning we had what we called sows having pigs, and those pigs needed shots. We had some beans in the field that we realized had a fungus and needed to be sprayed. And we had the sprayer, the tractor that goes on the sprayer, it needed to have, before we put any more what we call hours, kind of like miles on it, it needed to have an oil change. My dad was very good at maintaining stuff. And I remember asking my dad, well, Dad, do you want me to give the shot to the pigs? Do you want me to get the beans taken care of? I need to do the equipment first. Because we just work from sunrise to sundown. And this is what he said to me. He said, take care of what's breathing first, and the rest will work out. Wow. So we took care of the pigs. And I remember that time. And I was thinking to myself, what is it that helps him to realize those type of things?
Oh, yeah.
And I think there's a lot of lessons that we learn from just working hard. If you work hard, you get more accomplished. The more accomplished you get, the more you learn. Also, one of the great things about my dad, Papa, is his laugh. He enjoys people. Right now, I was saying how my mom's, she's having dementia, and so he can't get out as much. And you can just tell he's missing people. People are missing him. So you always want to have fun. And I think the world, now I'll try to wrap this up here.
No, you're good.
I think the world doesn't realize real joy.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. The father lies.
Mm-hmm.
And I was lucky in fifth grade. We had a Sunday school teacher by the name of Keith Reed, and he was only there, supposed to be there only for a short time because he's a diesel mechanic for a road company putting in a new highway through where our church was. And he came in, and this is before they had all these different scrubbing utensils and stuff to clean up. And he came in with oil and scars and cuts on his hands, and he taught us Sunday school. But one day he came in, had this hugest filter funnel you could ever find, and a step ladder, and he said, "Here, everyone, here's a quart of oil. You take that funnel, and before you get to go to the top of the ladder and pour it in, you get to take it, you twist it and turn it to whatever you want." Then it went into this 5-gallon bucket. Well, we thought we just hit heaven. Fifth grade boys, and we're twisting on that thing, and then going pouring it and hearing it go through and everything. And then he said, "That's the father of lies." Starts wide, and it will take you down. You'll think it's a great road, but eventually it will choke you out. And I just feel like people don't understand. They think a relationship with Jesus restricts, and a relationship with Jesus is just the opposite. Because freedom and joy. So that was where I could, the joy part, have fun, and then touch lies. I just saw my parents do that. And I could tell you story after story in the heat of the moment when we should have been doing things on the farm. If a neighbor or someone in town needed anything from a meal to a vehicle to being drove to the doctor, they did it. And there was times I really questioned it, saying, why are we doing this when we need to be doing that? Because
it's what's in front of you, right?
yeah. It's like, I'll just dovetail in real quick.
Yeah.
It's really easy to reinforce those. There'd be times, literally, I would walk past the kids in a school hall and just touch their shoulder and say, that's having fun.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
Or another time say, that's touching lives. That's all I had to say. And I felt like I was reinforcing them and building them up. And kids need building up.
Mm-hmm.
They do, yeah. And I think this in lesson 2, you talk about loving. Is it love by serving others? Is that right, Emily? Is that correct? And I love the story you tell about, and you kind of mentioned where you had a lot of stuff going on at the farm and with the cows, right? With something,
Right.
and then your papa. Tell me about that brief story about your papa kind of ministering to that man. At the market.
So it's probably one of those various instances that you just said you could give a lot of examples. But yeah, there was, and if you watch the video, it's basically there's a water mechanism that helps to provide water for the cattle. And it had broken. There was water everywhere. And we kind of assessed the situation, realized it was an emergency, and then went into town to get the part that we needed to fix it. But along the way, there was a man at the farm store that my papa intentionally turned aside, and started a conversation with him, asking him how he was doing. It wasn't a long conversation, but it was very intentional. And in the intention of it, I was like, why? Why are you doing this when the whole farm is drowning back on, the farm? And just kind of finally got through it, hopped in the truck with him, was like, good, we're on our way. And he explained to me, because he's not stupid. He knows that we have a lot to do. And he knows that I'm like, what are you doing? He says to me, Emily, that man, his wife died just a little bit ago. And I knew it. And I wanted to make sure that he was okay, genuinely okay. And it was like, talk about a pierce in the heart. I didn't realize. And even if even if his wife hadn't died, I should have been okay with it. But
how old were you when you were?
Maybe 13 or 14, I want to say.
Probably.
Yeah, I want to say 13 or 14.
So 13 or 14, impatience runs very high.
Right.
Teenagers, right? You and me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah. So basically just that, take care of what's breathing, take care of what's in front of you. Like you said, Blake, that it's, you serve people and you bless people and serve people by caring about the people. And, if we take that from the life of Ruth and Boaz, in the sense that Boaz was impressed by Ruth working hard and wanted to serve her by providing for her. How can we do that tangibly in our lives, whether it be something physical, like Boaz gave Ruth food and a safe place to work? We can maybe do something like that, or something intangible, something like my papa gave just genuine care and time and focus to a person who didn't even ask for it but needed it.
Yeah, that's the important thing. I mean, would you guys say there's always maybe one small thing or something every day? I think we think maybe a lot of times we have to do a grandiose thing,
Right,
to serve someone, and that's not always the case. That little tiny thing can be that grandiose thing,
absolutely.
And so I think when I saw that, when I was watching the video, I was like, oh my goodness. That's when I started crying, because the emotion came in, and you're thinking, my goodness. I can remember so many times where that happened, even in my family. So I think people could definitely connect in that. What's the little thing? What's the little thing in front of you?
Yeah.
And then you get down to trust, which I think any age, girl or boy, when you're a teenager, young kid, I think trust is probably one of the first things you probably learn as a small kid.
Yeah.
Who has the candy?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, like who has the good stuff, and
Right.
and so I think that was y'all were sitting in the golf cart, is that right? Yeah, or some cart, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, man, I bet y'all went and rode around on. Did y'all ride around on that after y'all were done shooting? Like,
It's-
let's go mudding or something. That's a country
Yeah.
thing, right?
That's
Mudding.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it was it's called it's got various names, but it's like a gator or a mule, or so it's like basically everyone who has a farm, and people who live out in the country. There's a lot of rural life. Everyone has one because if you have land, you need to like be able to get across your
Oh,
acres. So
Those are
yeah.
cool. Yeah, we have
Yeah.
a golf place around here, and every time we pass it, my kids are like, "Can we get that big green?"
It's
I was
fun.
like, "Yeah, but it's like $20,000. You know, like it's like a used car or something. You know, a brand new car."
It is.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that looked like fun. I thought that was really unique. I love the aspect of the trust. Maybe Carrie, you can talk a little bit about that, about the helping your daughter, helping your son gain that trust, and how it kind of correlates with the Book of Ruth.
One of the things I noticed in some classes I took and some books I read was that 5-letter word just kept popping up. Trust, trust. They would interview CEOs that had learning disabilities, should have never been CEO position or material. But their people would say, no, I want to follow them. I trust them.
Sure.
So I just wanted to make sure our kids, I look back at my dad. I don't know if my dad ever read a leadership book until I started giving them to him, and I'd say, "This is about you." But he developed trust. Once again, the farm life, great benefit. So glad my kids got to experience it enough to where it's affected them. But you got to develop. My dad would say, if you do it this way, this way, this way, it will work. But then the neat thing is sometimes he would say, and if you find a better way, I trust you to do it. So it's developing it, and then also giving room for you to develop it too. And so with our kids, I always tried to work at that. And I tried not to be foolish either in saying, I trust you. They would know without a doubt in my mind when I started to question something, and they learned to understand after a while. The kids had to learn with me that there'd be times I'd say, I just don't feel good about this. I felt like it was the Holy Spirit sometimes telling me that. Sometimes it's probably a little bit of me just being stubborn too. But they learned that, and then I would trust them. I would ask them to explain why. Okay, let's try it, and stuff like that. So when we were driving around at the Lake of the Ozark, it was the Southern Missouri District campgrounds where we were at.
Oh, wow.
And I helped them with some building projects, and while helping a businessman there, and it was just up and down hills and stuff. It was a great place for the kids. They were the youngest kids on the place, and then most of them retired people. My wife and I were the second youngest people on the place. So it was a great atmosphere for them. But I just wanted them to understand, as they grow, you need to step out and try to do some things that are maybe beyond you at this time. But if I'm around, I'm going to do everything in my power that you will not get hurt.
Yeah. And Emily, when you hear something like that, when you even were a teenage girl, growing up, how did you, respond to that kind of, investment into your life of trust?
So I think maybe because I heard it so regularly, like it was repeated so often to me that I took it for granted until I experienced something that would be a possible, like, oh, I don't know what to do about this.
Yeah.
I know someone who cares about me, who will put my safety first, who knows my heart and my desires. And you know what? I can go talk to him, because and that's what I think too, you were just saying, you would ask for our explanation. Trust doesn't mean because I said so. I mean, sometimes it did. Sometimes it was, why won't you let us do this? I don't feel good about it. But really the explanation behind that was because the Holy Spirit is speaking to my heart and I trust him. And that was a sufficient explanation for us.
Yeah.
But also just the fact that we were allowed to give explanation, and also things weren't just, black and white because we said so. There was always explanation of like, this is why. And it was always for the benefit of us. It wasn't just because we want to say no. It was because I see how this will affect your character, because I see who the people you're asking to be around, and this is why I don't approve of them, or why I do approve of them. It gave me guidelines for not just that situation, but in the future, I could look back on those things, knowing the yeses and nos that I'd been given were rooted in that trust, that mutual trust for my benefit. And I could always come back and ask questions, or, if I had a difficult situation, I had a safe place because I knew whatever the answer was, it was going to be for my benefit and for God's glory ultimately.
Yeah, it's important. One thing I think kind of goes along with that, and this touches on the last lesson in the redemption. I know you talked a little about legacy in that, but also, I believe it was you, Carrie, that said, if anyone's going to understand your heart, it's going to be your kids.
Yeah.
And I loved that line. And I think that has to go back into the whole trust issue too. I mean, if they're going to obey, if they're going to follow the example you have in front of them, and they know your heart, right? And so if they know your heart and they know what you do behind, the reasons why you do the things you do, then majority of the time it can make it really easy just to say, hey, I'm going to honor my parents in this. Has your relationship with your father, has it really helped nurtured your relationship, not just only with the Lord, but with your husband?
Like, it's crazy you said that, like, knowing the heart. I know it came from a lesson and how you said it, but I think Christopher and I like picked it up from a marriage seminar somewhere, that like basically in the midst of whatever contention you're in, whenever you're in inevitable contention as a married couple, like just key into the fact that you know their heart. And like whenever I can get my brain to like wrap itself around that fact, then it's like this foundational love of God the Father through my whole life, as shown to me through my parents, my own father, and then in the loving relationship between my husband and I, it's fulfilled, like a realization of like, you know what, whatever we're fighting about really doesn't matter. Right. I know where your heart is, and your heart is the Father's heart, and the Father's heart is for me and for his glory, and I can trust that. And then there you have it, just all of the lessons intermingled together, because that's how God is. He's so good. He just trust, redemption, love, it all flows together for our benefit. So
yeah, I mean, and at the end of Ruth, I mean, they get married. I mean, it takes. Right. I mean, that's hello.
Massive.
Yeah. There we go. It's the moment, and it's there. It is beautiful, redemption, and then also legacy. I mean, I can just see it oozing from your bones today. That, I mean, you guys are all about legacy as well. With your younger son, Judah, and with the rest of your family. It seems like a legacy that will just last.
Yeah.
Not last because of just simple legacy, but lasting because your focus is on the Lord.
Yeah.
And so it's really neat to see a family that does work hard. Seems like you guys are really hard workers. Has a lot of fun and touches many lives, and I'm thankful to meet you and to know you and to talk with you through this. I hope that that parents can watch this, and even kids can watch this, and these different videos you have, and it can change mindsets as to have conversation. Yeah. And so I think what you guys have done with your family is just to be open, to be available, to be open. And I think that's what we have to do. What's in front of us, let's be open to our kids. Let's talk through the difficult things and rejoice in the happy things, and see where we can meet in the middle, Yeah. And I appreciate you to taking the step and doing this. And I also want to give a shout out to Christopher, Emily's
Yes.
husband. I know he's in agony right now, but like,
Yes.
we're going to have to continue to pray for his knee, but
Yes.
he was the one really that produced it. He filmed it. He did all of that and did such a
Yeah.
good job at it. And
Yeah.
I really loved the music too. Tell
Yeah.
him that I enjoyed everything, but I really
sure.
loved the music. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so no, he worked. I can tell he worked really hard on it. Great intros, outros, all that. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not going to touch it. I'm just going to put it in and out on it. We're done. This is over. So
Yeah.
but we appreciate y'all's time today, and thank you for the example you've placed for so many, and doing this project, Emily. Hopefully you got 100. I don't know if you get 100s in seminaries, but hopefully you got A++. You never know. But we appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on the TBS podcast, and blessings to you guys.
Thank you.
We appreciate you, Blake. Thank you.
Mhm.